The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. As we begin the General Assembly's 2014 session, we are very pleased to have as a special guest Delegate John O'Bannon from Henrico County. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
No problem. Tell us, we have a new administration. The Democrats swept the statewide offices last year. We have a new governor and a new attorney general and a new lieutenant governor. Tell us how you think that will impact the 2014 General Assembly.
Well, Woody, I think we'll have a good year. We know these folks, certainly the lieutenant governor and the attorney general. Mr. McAuliffe is a newcomer to elected office, but he's got a lot of energy. I'm pleased with his cabinet picks substantially. These are folks that we have known and worked with for the most part. So I look forward to a productive session. I look forward to getting our budget completed, balanced, and I look forward to leaving town on March 8th on time.
And we were talking earlier about the cabinet picks and how smart it was for the governor to retain some veterans. Talk about some of those cabinet picks.
Well, I think he has chosen folks who have a lot of experience. Nancy Rodriguez, I think, is with the Secretary of Administration. He held over some folks from the prior administration, including Todd Haymore at Agriculture, Rick Brown, who's Secretary of Finance, who is really good with numbers, and Bill Hazel. Dr. Hazel has been Secretary of Health and Human Resources. He's an orthopedic surgeon who really understands health care and has done, I think, a really good job. So I think we've got a great opportunity.
Now, how are things in your district? I know it's District 73, I believe, which is part of Henrico County, but a pretty large part of the county.
I am privileged to represent what might be considered the Near West End. In my time down here, I've also represented the city of Richmond, a little bit on both sides of the river. With the last redistricting, I'm actually now sort of from the University of Richmond to Tucker High School over towards north side and represent about 80,000 people in the Near West End.
And you've been here since, what, 2001 now?
This is my 14th year, I guess. And you know, it's really interesting. You learn something every single year. It's a humbling experience. Talk
to us about some of the changes you've seen over that period of time, both positive and negative.
That's an interesting question. Wasn't exactly expecting that one. I actually think things are, in the big picture, run a little more efficiently now. I think we have a bigger lobbying presence than we did, but I like our citizen model. You know, when you come down here for these 6 or 8 weeks, it's not really the real world. The real world, you know, not everybody laughs at your jokes. Not everybody treats you special. So when we get done and go back home, we get back into our districts and get back down to everyday things. So it's a good model.
So when you visit the grocery store, you get an earful, whether it's positive or negative.
During session, yes, absolutely. That's fine. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Now, you happen to be one of, I believe, 4 physicians in the General Assembly. How does your background and training inform your work here in the General Assembly?
It's been a privilege to be in the General Assembly. As you know, we have 100 people in the House of Delegates. There are 40 state senators. And that's the way it's supposed to work. We have teachers, we have lawyers, we have business people, bankers. And so to have health care expertise is worth a lot. We have a general surgeon, we have an OB/GYN, we have a fellow named Mark Berg who just came in, who's done family medicine and ER medicine. We have a nurse, 2 pharmacists, and a physical therapist. And over in the Senate, we, of course, have Dr. Ralph Northam, who's now our Lieutenant Governor, who's to some degree, the same business I'm in. He's a child or pediatric neurologist. I'm a general adult neurologist.
Now, the governor in his inaugural address emphasized the need to diversify the economy in the state of Virginia. How has Henrico County fared since 2007, 2008?
Woody, you have hit on what I think is obviously the biggest, most important thing we can do while we're here, and that is try to improve Virginia's job outlook, economy, economic diversity. The governor has been focused, as we have in our House of Delegates, on workforce development. And workforce is a huge issue. Everybody loves to wrap their arms around it, but there's a lot of money that comes from Washington. There's a lot of money that we spend. We have some success stories, but that's certainly one thing we're going to be looking at. Henrico has been hard hit with the economic downturn. We lost the chip factory. We lost Circuit City, Land America, a number of corporate headquarters. And of course, the housing values have gone down. They are now coming back. They're creeping on back up to pretty close to where they were before. If you read the paper, you won't see as many foreclosures anymore, but there's still some folks who are underwater. Virginia has been really blessed to have a good business rating. Forbes, we've got back to #1 this year with Forbes magazine as the best state in which to do business. But I think you'll see all of us, both sides, both houses, focused on things that are important to the economy.
Talk to us a little bit more about the real estate market in Henrico County and the things that local government officials there have had to do to make up the loss.
Sure. Local governments pretty much depend on revenue from their taxes on houses and other things like the B-poll tax and
the business professional occupational
licensure tax and the machinery and tools tax. And all of us hate taxes, and I hate them too. And so there's been talk of things that might either reform or exchange things like the B-poll. B-poll came in with the War of 1812 as a temporary tax. Lesson learned. But I will say that Henrico, unlike some localities, doesn't tax the first 100,000 of gross receipts. So if you're a small business, you've got to make over 100,000 before you start paying that, and then they don't go back and start taxing from the first dollar. So part of the challenge and why so many of us don't like the B-poll is that this is a patchwork across the state. Each locality has their own way of doing it. Machinery and tools is a similar problem because there are folks that say that inhibits economic growth. What Henrico has done, they chose to do a referendum now on a thing called the meals tax. And you're familiar with local government. Depending on the stature of the locality, if you're a city or a town, the governing body can go ahead and institute things like cigarette tax or meals tax just without a referendum, without asking the citizens, whereas a county can't do that. And so Henrico County had done it before, but this time they did it and they got it passed. So Henrico now has the option for a meals tax if the governing board votes to do it. So the meals tax would be one way they could make up some of the loss in revenue from the real estate tax, which really did go down quite a bit and is just now getting back in the right direction.
But overall, the county is in good fiscal shape.
The county is in very good shape. We have a great mix of industry and business, commercial and residential. We were blessed to have that. We have the airport in Henrico. We have the majority of hotels and motels. As a great reminder of how the region works well together, we've got our Richmond Convention Center, which is built with taxes from the hotel and motel rooms. So you can make a case that folks that came to visit and not the locals were the ones that basically support that and built that.
Exactly. And I take it that is part and parcel of some of the rationale behind what happened last session in terms of transportation, going to a sales tax in order to capture those who come into the state to visit.
That's correct. We had the challenge with the gas tax that it was a per number of pennies per gallon, which is a static thing and actually going backwards in the sense of amount of revenue it generated. So basically, and this was Governor McDonald's idea, was to switch that to a sales tax so that it's proportional, and therefore as the economy grows and the number of gallons increase, that revenue will be there to help support the roads.
Now, I wanted to talk about a pin on your lapel because it relates to our veterans. Tell us about that.
I've had the privilege of working with the Virginia War Memorial Foundation here in Richmond. It's on Belvedere Street. I would encourage everybody to come. We have the new Galani Educational Center, which honors Paul Galani. It's a great place to come. You can visit, you can learn the history of the military in Virginia and observe the shrines that are there that honor the folks that have been killed. We are in the process of building a new addition, which basically will honor all those folks that have been killed since 9/11, since the War on Terror started. Bob McDonald, to his credit, when he was Attorney General, initiated his Wall of Honor down at the Attorney General's office, which is a bit more modern way of honoring these folks. And that will now be built as a part of an addition with more educational space. The goal of that is to just remind Virginians, remind people of what it takes, what sacrifices are made so that we can come and do these laws and we have a free society and a wonderful place to live.
And of course, our returning veterans, I know there have been initiatives to encourage them to start small businesses. To talk to us about what's been done.
We have a couple of things that's interesting. Even the technology folks up in Northern Virginia, the business community, large businesses, technology businesses, and small companies have got systems in place now to try to preferentially hire veterans who are returning from overseas. The veterans are well organized, and I'm actually carrying a little piece of legislation which will help people who are in service overseas be able to vote more efficiently electronically, absentee. So,
and I think there was a move last session or before to streamline the process at the State Corporation Commission, especially for small businesses.
Right, I think that's correct, and I think Virginia, Bob obviously McDonald had a goal of making us the most veteran-friendly state. We have a huge presence of veterans, something like 800,000 veterans in the state, so it's important to us.
We were talking earlier about bond ratings, and of course the state of Virginia continues to enjoy a AAA bond rating, and I believe Henrico County continues to enjoy a very high bond rating. Why is that so important?
Well, there are certain things which make a locality or a state stand out when you're trying to recruit new businesses. And so when you have automobile factories or airplane factories or any kind of business, Rolls-Royce chose to come to Prince George County. Those folks are interested in how your economy is as a state, what the educational level is, can we have a trained workforce, and will we have a good workforce? And will our employees have benefit of a good educational system? And so this is just the linchpin. Things like basic right-to-work laws, which balance things, and your good bond rating are the things that businesses look at when they decide to move. And there is no question, there's a shift to the Southeast. We compete with the Texases and the South Carolinas and the North Carolinas for these businesses. When we did the census in 2010, there were 8 million Virginians. There are now 8,200,000 Virginians. So clearly we're in a growth mode, and we need to be prepared for that, and we need to do everything we can to support that.
And of course, to the extent that the state of Virginia or a county or locality needs to borrow money, the higher the bond rating, the cheaper the payback on that.
Exactly right. When you have that, and I'm not in the business of business, but when you go to sell bonds, you go onto the bond market, the better your economy is, the better your bond rating, the cheaper it is for you to borrow money in the long run. So we're very proud of that. We've had some ups and downs with that. You know, when the crash occurred in 2008, the big banks and the businesses got looked at. And one of the things that got looked at was the bond rating agencies. And were they really doing their job? Well, they've come now and said, we're going to change the way we do business with entities like governments, so that if a government has a long-term debt, a bond, they're going to have to reflect that on the sheet, not as a footnote. And so that puts a lot more dollars in play when you have to do your balance sheet. So the state and the localities like Henrico, it's been one of Henrico's issues, and they're working with the state, and we're looking at what we could do to make that work.
We had talked earlier about the importance of workforce development, especially as that relates to attracting and maintaining new businesses. And of course, the community colleges play a huge role in that effort. Talk to us about our community colleges.
We have a robust set of community colleges. We have now chosen, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, to link those to the other parts of higher ed. We've got this 2+2 program where you can do 2 years at your community college and be assured of getting a spot at one of our state public institutions. In the healthcare side of things, the community colleges are really important to our training of medical people, nurses and lab techs and radiology technologists. The community college system, there's a partnering down where Rolls-Royce came in to make the aircraft engines with John Tyler Community College. J. Sargent Reynolds is doing similar things where you use your community college system to enhance the quality of your workforce.
And it also provides retraining for a lot of adults who have lost their jobs.
Yep. Clearly an important issue over the last 3 or 4 years. And even though our unemployment rate is better than it has been, we're still a little bit lagging in Henrico and the Richmond area from some others. Now, we're better off in some areas, but we still have a ways to go on that.
And of course, you're a member of the Appropriations Committee, and you're going to be involved in dealing with those issues, how to continue to finance not only the junior colleges, but our institutions of higher learning, which are renowned throughout the country.
It's been interesting. One of the former governor's important issues was higher education. He had a goal of 100,000 new degrees. We have done a lot of work in getting additional funding to the universities, and at the same time trying to encourage the universities to be efficient in how they use their buildings, how they use their professors, and supporting them in ways that will improve efficiency. It's always a challenge because tuitions are always going up, but we continue to work on that, and I think Virginia is blessed with wonderful colleges. We have, and universities, we have some of the best in the world, and my kids have been privileged to go to some of those public schools.
And of course, there's been an emphasis on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. How has that gone? STEM, as you mentioned, or STEM-H, which is the health part of it, is where we've had a lot of emphasis, because that is an area where we see job growth. And that has gotten some additional funding. It's gotten a lot of profile at the community college level and also at the universities. They're all focused on that. I want to turn to an area of specific expertise of yours as a result of your background and training, but also because of your membership on the Medicaid Commission and also your chairmanship of JLARC. I want to read a quote from the governor's inaugural address. Like the majority of other states, we need to act on the consensus of the business community and healthcare industry to accept funding that will expand healthcare coverage, save rural hospitals, and spur job creation. And I want to get your reaction to that.
Let me say one thing. actually the decision to expand Medicaid or not is straight 50-50. 25 states have done it, 25 states have not done it. Actually, D.C. did it, but they're...
Right.
So what we have with the Medicaid expansion is this difficult decision about whether to expand the Medicaid program as it exists today. Current Medicaid, before expansion, is the fastest growing part of the state budget. It's 22% of this year's budget. It's 40% of any new dollar in the budget. And it's grown, not doubled, it's 133% more today than it was 10 years ago. So what we have is we have an unsustainable curve with current Medicaid. And that's why Justice Roberts ruled the way he did.
Of the U.S. Supreme Court, basically giving the states
Exactly.
an option.
He perceived, and the court agreed, that that was, if you will, something that the states might not be able to live with. It might break the banks in the states. And so as a result of that, Virginia has not expanded Medicaid. What we have chosen to do is try to reform the Medicaid program to get it more efficient, to get things in better shape within the program before considering to expand it. There's a lot of talk now about whether we could do a special waiver or deal, if you will, like some states have done, the Virginia way maybe, where we could do something a little different. So we are looking at this very carefully. I'm hearing a lot from the advocates. I'm hearing a lot from the folks that will gain financially from taking this money. But I'm also hearing from a lot of folks who do have concerns about the cost of this, what it will do to our budget in the long run. And there's all kind of predictions of dollars. I don't know when the last time anybody accurately predicted what would happen in healthcare in 7 or 8 years. But it's something that will be a matter of discussion. We're trying to figure a way that we might be able to. This is important. It is for the low-income folks. Medicaid was started as a safety net. Mm-hmm. And the expansion is much more than that. It provides government insurance to everybody below a certain income. And so there's a lot of folks that aren't real comfortable with that approach to things.
That would include childless adults now then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Medicaid is currently for those who either have a chronic illness or they're having a baby or they have a problem. The new approach would be to give Medicaid type of insurance to everybody at a low income level. And so that does represent, rightly or wrongly, an expansion of government health care. And that's why folks have some concern about doing it that way. There are also folks who are concerned about the long-term situation in Washington with the federal budget and what's going to happen with Medicare and Social Security. So the details of the scheme are that you get 100% from the federal government for the first 3 years and then 90%, but hard to tell, guarantee-wise after that. So there's a lot of pieces to this. We have a process in place where we're looking at it, and we're making some progress on the reforms. But it will be a matter of discussion. The governors, I would say that it's 50-50. 25 states have expanded and 25 haven't. So
what's the prognosis in terms of the reforms or the waivers from CMS?
That's just going to depend on how much they're willing to negotiate with us. Some states have done global budgeting. The state of Oregon decided they got some extra money and decided to do a system where they go right to the locality level. And then they give those dollars to the hospitals and the providers, and they say, you'll get this much this year, you get 4% more next year. But that's a real change in the paradigm. Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at this. We're going to see what we think is best for Virginia to do. But we have to be a little bit careful about how we do anything with Medicaid expansion because it's very expensive. And so we're kind of looking for a different way.
Sticking with health care, mental health, which has been on the agenda for quite a while, has been highlighted by a recent tragedy in regards to Senator Creed Deeds. What's likely to happen in that arena?
I think you will see there's broad support, both houses, both parties, for reforms in the mental health system. In the big picture, we have a lot of history here. We have been closing our mental institutions. We have been downsizing the big hospitals. The psych units in regular hospitals have been closed, a lot of them. So we have an issue with bed capacity. We have an issue with getting patients who are in trouble services when they need them. We have a history of, after Virginia Tech, that gentleman was recognized in Fairfax. He was getting treatment in Fairfax. He went to Tech. He had one shot. He was picked up one time. He said, "I'll come for treatment," and he fell off the radar screen. So we have a lot of challenges with the way the care is delivered to the community, to the base level folks, the folks who need services who aren't in a private system. As you know, that's done by either things called community services boards, like Henrico has, or like our city has our RBHA, Richmond Behavioral Health Authority. So I think you will see reforms in how that process works. We're talking now about the ability to hold someone against their will.
Right.
There's two parts to that. There's a short one and a longer one. This was very much studied after Virginia Tech. Resources, Tech was in '07. We chose to budget more money. The economic disaster came, and we had to cut, and we have cut funding that we had started to put into that program. So here we are now, 5 years later, and we're going to have to pay. We ought to pay the price and get that program stronger and more efficient in how it handles people, and deal with people before they get into a crisis mode. That's the real trick to this. It's fine to have crisis centers where people can go, but the real goal ought to be to detect these folks, get them treatment before they get unstable or before they get into a crisis.
Finally, we've got about a minute left or so. Ethics reform.
It's time to do that. I think you'll find both parties, both houses doing that. We've come up with a bipartisan package in the House that has a gift limit, has some definitions on who a friend is, and try to get at the issue of what your family might take, and get the cycles properly aligned. Right now, the lobbyists are reporting off time that the elected people are. So you could put that all into one cycle, and I think it would be better.
Great. We'll have to end it there. They're telling me we're out of time.
We're done.
Our guest has been Delegate John O'Bannon from Henrico County, the 73rd District. Thank you for watching Cable Reports. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.